Welcome to Live Like an Acrobat. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, two-time World Acrobatic Gymnastics Champion, USA Gymnastics Hall of Fame member, and Cirque artist. I'm also an advocate for rain. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I discuss acro handstanding in terms of training tips, coaching, and I explore circus and acrobatic gymnastics competitive life as I have lived it from past to current, and I theorize on what the future may bring in these fields. On each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I will bring you insight through my own experiences, which are rooted in a perspective built on social justice advocacy and how these important issues continue to intersect between the circus arts and acrobatics competitive world at large. On each episode, I have the pleasure of discussing these various narratives with a variety of fascinating special guests. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. Please consider a donation to encourage the continuation and evolution of this podcast. The details of how to donate are located in the show notes. Please make sure to check out the Circuspreneurblog.com for extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I am available for handstand private sessions and workshops through aerialfitbodies.com, and in a new announcement, I'm also a Circo certified trainer. Check out Circo.co, a new circus school online international platform where you can learn hand balancing with me and learn so many other circus disciplines from trained Cirque performers from all over the world. Check out my new vlog series, Think Like an Acrobat, which is available exclusively on Circus Talk as a pro series. It's offering pro tips to professionals within the circus arts industry. Episode 2 of Think Like an Acrobat is out now exclusively on Circus Talk. Become a pro member so that you can experience the brilliance of my special guests, this time focusing on the virtual planning experience by resourcing for yourself. And speaking of virtual events, for those of you seeking a virtual burlesque experience, I will be participating in the upcoming Marvelous and Melanated, which presents LA's Black Burlesque and Variety Artists Review. Follow at Marvelous and Melanated for show dates, cast, and ticket link. All details will be available in the show notes. Another virtual experience that is upcoming that you don't want to miss is Omnium, ringmastered by my exceptional Live Like an Acrobat podcast episode 6 guest, the legendary Ringling Brothers ringmaster Jonathan Lee Iverson. Omnium is a bold new circus that celebrates uniqueness, strength, spirit, diversity, and talent. The link for tickets will be available in the show notes. On this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast, I have the absolute delight of interviewing the artist responsible for portraying the iconic Yellow and Red Bird characters from Cirque du Soleil's Mystère, Chris Phi. Christopher Phi was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. Theater and acrobatics has been his life since he was 8 years old. He competed in tumbling for 4 years, earning national titles, and in 2005, he was hired to help create the show Reve in Las Vegas by Franco Dragone, where he performed until 2010. For the next few years, he traveled and gigged across the world, finally coming back to Vegas in 2013 to join the cast of Cirque du Soleil's Mystere. In happier times, Chris can be seen performing as Yellow or Red Bird in this iconic 26 years young show. Please welcome to the podcast, Chris Phi. Because Chris Phi is a BIPOC artist or Black Indigenous person of color and also a member of the LGBTQ plus community, I asked him if he could reflect on how this has affected his experiences within the circus arts and performing arts world at large over the many years that he has been so exceptional in this medium. I thought it would be great to open this conversation with Chris, reflecting in his own words about his perspectives and reflections. Listen how he so elegantly communicates the profundity of his experiences. Although I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, I struggled greatly coming to terms with my sexuality. This was a time well before shows like Modern Family or Queer Eye existed, and I felt great pressure to conform to the norm. Additionally, my father is Vietnamese and my mother is Caucasian. While I think I look mixed, my Asian heritage is very clear. Since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be an actor, but I didn't see people who looked like me represented on screen. This was a time where the teen heartthrobs were Jonathan Taylor Thomas, Devon Sawa, and Rachel Lee Cook. White was considered the standard for beauty, with few exceptions. I was ambitious and hardworking, but my situation left me feeling isolated and confused. I booked Reve on my 19th birthday and moved out to Las Vegas to join the creation of the show. There was one other person of Asian descent in our cast of 70, and a couple other individuals of the LGBTQ+ community. Despite having recently come out as gay with the support of my now husband, my sense of self was still very much developing. The great majority of our opening cast was white, with a large group being from Eastern Europe. While there were a few degrading comments towards the beginning of creation linking my lifestyle with dogs in a very intimate way, we all grew together as a cast and became accepting and supportive of one another. I wasn't white like most of my coworkers, but it bothered me rarely. I find the circus world, less than other industries, tends to judge you more based upon ability and less on ethnicity. It still is challenging at times in a culture where the Asian male is very rarely depicted as desirable. But I have learned to detach myself as much as possible from the idea that we must meet very specific requirements to be considered beautiful and desirable. I feel the world as a whole is slowly becoming more accepting of differences. And by the time I arrived at Mystère, I feel my sexuality and ethnicity was accepted and embraced without a second thought. My overall feelings from my peers in circus community is one of incredible support and acceptance. And I am so thankful to have grown up in such a loving and open environment with such beautiful people. Please welcome to the show the most beautiful, beautiful person, Mr. Christopher Phi. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hey there, I'm doing great. Good to hear your voice, Shenea. It's been a couple minutes.
Yeah, it has. I know. Since we've seen each other in person, since we've spoken, it has been a little while, and I'm so excited to have you on the show, Chris.
Yeah,
You're so wonderful. You're such a lovely, beautiful human being and beautiful artist. And yeah, of course. And we go way back. I just want to let listeners know.
We go way back.
We competed together in acrobatic gymnastics, and we were very little acrobatic babies.
We did. I think you were one of the first people I got starstruck over, actually.
Oh, stop.
Did you know that? I don't know if we've ever talked about this, actually. It's been a little while, but yeah, because it was, back in the day I had just started and you had not just started. You were doing amazing things already, and yeah, I was like, well, I haven't seen that sport before, but I want to do that sport, and I'm going to start doing handstands so I can try to do that sport. Yeah, no, in a big way, it was amazing watching you. And this was before YouTube, right? So you were like legit.
You're so amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's so sweet. And that makes me...
It's true. It's like before YouTube, like either you see it in person or it just doesn't exist for you, right? And you were that in person for me, so it was great.
I know. That's what I tell the younger generations now. I actually just did something called Acro Companion, and you get to speak to different acrobats over generations, and they were speaking a lot about YouTube, and me and Arthur, my former acrobatic partner, we were saying, well, gosh, if we would have had YouTube during that time, it changes everything.
It does. I mean, and not to diminish, if you do have YouTube, you still have to work your tail off, but just being able to see that things are possible and see how they're it does. It's kind of a game changer. I agree with you.
It totally is. And I mean, that was my first experience when I got into the sport of acrobatic gymnastics too. I was, walking through a dance studio with my grandmother, and I saw the sport too. And I just, I had never seen such a thing. I'd never seen it.
At that time?
I was 7, I believe. Yeah, I was 7 and a half, around 8 years old when I started. How old were you, Chris, when you started acro?
I did recreational gymnastics on a semi-serious level, and then I didn't start tumbling until I was 13. Wow. And then I never competed in acrobatics. I just, like I said, I saw the sport and I fell in love with it, but I was kind of an in-between size for it. And plus Anatoly said I was a good tumbler, and I should probably continue with that. But that didn't stop me from stretching my tail off and getting the video from nationals and watching you and being like, it looks like she's staying tight, so I'm going to try to stay tight when I'm trying a one-arm handstand. Yeah, all that.
So beautiful. And yes, we ended up sharing the same coach, who is Anatoly Soledar, and he was an acro sage. I feel like Anatoly was very much like the acro Yoda for me. He was such a peaceful, kind, very soft spoken, brilliant acrobatic coach. And we also too competed with his son, Andre Soledar, who like us ran away and joined the circus. Andre did Verikai before me for about 5 years. I did Verikai after Andre did, and so Anatoly is Andre's dad, and so that's a part of our community. Did you compete at that time? It would have been ATA, right? It would have been.
Yeah, so I competed tumbling for ATA for, I think, maybe 3 seasons, and then I went to Anatoly's gym for a little bit after that. But I think it was just 3, maybe 4. No, probably 4 nationals, I guess. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you did. Oh, okay. So you did both when he was there, and then afterwards as well, when he had his own gym.
Yeah. I was at his own gym for just a bit, but yeah, the entire time I just did tumbling, and I was just an acrobatic wannabe the entire time.
Well, what you transitioned into, is really incredible and really remarkable. I love that you competed in tumbling. I actually always wanted to compete in tumbling too, which I'll tell the audience. At a certain point when we were competing, acrobatic gymnastics and tumbling, we used to have our competitions together before tumbling. Yes, before tumbling became its own entity and split off, and then we stopped seeing everybody that competed in tumbling, and people actually stopped, I think, competing in both, because people would compete in acrobatic gymnastics and then they would literally go over and wait a couple of hours, and then they would compete in tumbling.
That's right. And I remember it broke my heart when it split, because competing in tumbling, I did okay, but really I was there to watch the acro. That's kind of what I was there for. So when it split off, I was like, oh, this is just a bummer.
I bet. Yeah, it was really sad. I really missed it. I really thought that there was something so powerful and unique with having it both. And like I said, I wouldn't have been inspired to tumble in the way that I did had I not had access to seeing tumbling too all the time. And it was always so great, being in the same gym and having the same schedules, and being able to root for different members of your team in different ways. And then it's everyone kind of disappeared because we didn't have that same connection. But I have to say, I did a couple of whip passes, which are back handsprings with no hands for listeners, and those were some of my favorite days. But I I didn't take it as far as you did, Chris. I mean, obviously you were
you were fully competing in tumbling now. And it's tumbling is just, it's really, really brilliant. And I took it as far as I could.
Nice. I mean, you went pretty far in the acrobatic direction, so I feel like you got nothing to feel like you missed out on or anything.
Yeah, I stayed for me. I think I stayed mostly like, in my lane, but it was also fun when we did try to push ourselves a little bit and do like a little bit more like complicated and intricate passes like when we competed. So that was our nod to tumbling days. But I wanted to ask you, Chris, too. Like, do you stay on top of the sport at all? Do you have what kind of connection? Do you look in on the sport ever so often, whether it's acro or whether it's tumbling?
Yeah. I don't follow it religiously, but whenever the big meets come through here, I'm in Las Vegas right now. I'll go to a meet usually, and I'll watch all the acro stuff. Tumbling, not being quite as popular is the only way I follow that is by just watching the insanely awesome, talented people compete at the international level. But yeah, that is pretty much the extent of it. And also our mutual friend Andre now is a coach as well, so I'll kind of see it through his eyes as well, and kind of keep tabs on his team. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, this year was so big for everyone because like all the competitions got canceled, and a lot of kids actually couldn't even go into the gym for a really long time too. I was just speaking with the founder of Acro Companion. His name is David, and in Belgium they were on lockdown to do anything, and they just opened up I think about like a month ago. So they were just able to start going back into the gym and like training with partners, which is again for acro, partnership,
kind of everything.
And it's everything. Yeah, so you can train as much as you can on your own. I mean, of course, if you're even in tumbling, it would have been, if I wouldn't say easier, but you're by yourself. But with acro, it's like you can't do anything if you don't have your partner. And totally. I look in a little bit less, on tumbling as well too. But every single time I look in on it, it's like, wow, like whenever I see like any of the passes or combinations that people are doing, it's just like really, it's just like everything. Everybody just keeps like raising the bar and taking it to like all these new places and stuff.
It's pretty incredible. And like let's be honest, like I was good, but like I was not close to what they're doing at the international level, definitely. So yeah, they're pretty nuts.
Yeah, I also just felt really for them all during this period and not being able to compete. And we all know what it feels like to like be like locked out of competition and locked out of having the opportunity to compete, whether it's through injury or it's through a national event or international event, something happens and it kind of like stalls your career. And I mean, obviously like you and I have a lot of compassion for them too, which is really important for the athletes that I was speaking to understand that, because they see that I'm still performing and that I was performing all the way up until the pandemic. You also too, Chris, like you perform in Mystère and you were performing all the way up until the pandemic. So I feel like for us, we totally understand what it's like to be locked out of having access to being on the stage and competing and to having full access to like all of your physical movements that you're doing as well. I mean, because you actually like you perform really like big tricks in Mystère, right? Like you're not doing like simple back handsprings and stuff in Mystère. Like, you're selling yourself a little bit short on that end, in my opinion.
Yes, and it's actually been awesome because at Mystère too, I was able to be inspired and kind of nudged along by some international tumbling athletes. And so I didn't do a double straight until I was at Mystere, actually, I guess when I first learned that, but I've been able to progress I'm pretty pleased with how I progressed. Yeah. But I do a bunch of handstands, do a bunch of big tumbles. And then, depending on the character, I'll be dancing quite a bit. So it's pretty technical, but it's got some playfulness and some frolicking about to it as well. So yeah, I'm pretty happy there right now. Well, I was until we stopped, but hopefully I'll be happy there again soon.
Well, can you tell us what was your schedule like performing in Mystère? That's like the oldest Cirque du Soleil show, right, in Vegas?
Yeah, it's been around for like 26 years now. So it is Cirque du Soleil's first stationary show. So before that, they had like Nouvelle Expérience, I think. But this is the first show of Cirque du Soleil where they've had a theater constructed for this show. And for that reason, it's just inspired so many people. Like my husband saw it when he was a teenager and it inspired him. He brought me to see it when I was 18. And that's when I first saw, because this is, before YouTube again, it's when I first saw a lot of these things. And I remember when I was 18, I remember thinking, oh, I would love to play that yellow or red bird character. Like one of those two seems awesome, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, it's been around for 26 years, and there have been some cast members that have been there since day one on the acrobatic side even. And it's an incredible show for that reason, and it's inspired so many people.
Yeah, I have met some of them that were in the show from its inception, and I also met some of the artists that cycled out when they brought in kind of like the new overhaul of the cast, which they hadn't done for years. And I think it was like literally phenomenal for the artists that had been there for, over a decade, actually, since the show first started. And Mystere was actually my first live Cirque du Soleil show.
Oh, cool.
It was. Sometimes people are a little bit surprised by that. I'm like, well, I don't know. I wouldn't really have any kind of expectation of what my first Cirque show would be. Obviously, I saw all the Cirque shows on videotape way back when.
You never saw Verikai when it came through the Bay Area or anything?
Well, I saw all of those shows, but this was when Mystere came out before that. So so this was after all those shows came out. So the first live show, because I was really young when I saw Mystere, and Mystere has been around for almost older than all of us. So
you got exposed early. That's awesome.
Yeah. My parents love Vegas, and we always had timeshares in Vegas. We kind of had to go. And I know this is weird for people to think about parents taking their kids on vacation to Vegas, but there was a time when Vegas was very kid friendly, and it had a lot of things for families, and obviously for the shows when those started as well. Those were a big thing, and so my parents would, take us to see shows when I was little. So it really formed a lot of my ideas. And at that time I was already competing in acro. So it was, it just kind of coalesced and brought everything together.
A sweet Mystere connection that I have actually to the original production is that I was once offered with my former circus duo Realis to be the backup act for the Alexis brothers, who are the super famous hand balancing duo that you see in Mystere. And due to some background politics, apparently it was promised to another duo, and felt like they were doing a kind of a coup in putting in me and my former partner into that position. So we ended up not being able to do it. And now back to my conversation with the red and or yellow bird, Chris Phi.
Ask you too, Chris, since you've been the yellow and red bird, these are very iconic characters. I want to let listeners know, they're so iconic. I mean, it's really, really amazing. And Chris, you've been doing both since 2013, right?
Yeah, I started as Yellow Bird, and then there was an opening for a backup for Red Bird, and so I've been doing that for the past, 3 years maybe? Because when I first started, I think that a lot of the people there didn't know that I had quite a strong tumbling background. Because at the time they were, for the Yellow Bird, they kind of did a revamp of the character, but they wanted, strong hand balancing, and they wanted some good movement and dance, and then they wanted a bit of floor tumbling, but they had never planned on slapping me up on the faster power track. So when there was an opportunity, and what actually happened was they had a tumbling shortage, and I'm like, I can throw a double pike out of, a few flicks. And they're like, wait, you tumble? And that's kind of how that started. And so from that, once there was an opening for the Red Bird, it was kind of an organic progression, I suppose.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And that is a very unique combination. Like, you are such a beautiful, elegant, and incredibly flexible hand balancer. And you also can whip it up into the air. And you're also very elegant in the way that you tumble. So you bring like all of those elements inside of both. And that is very unique. What was your, I would say, like your, what was the creation process like for you entering into either one of those characters? Like I said, they're so iconic, and I would love to know, like, what was that process like for you, Chris, like coming to embody both of those characters?
Yeah, totally. It was incredible, honestly. I had already left Reve, which is a different show that I did, and I'd been freelancing, and when it came time to come to this character, or I could be considered for it, I suppose, the AD at the time, David Gomez, just ended up kind of cold calling me and saying, hey, we have your stuff. We like what we see. Can you come audition? And so from day one, David Gomez was just incredible to me. He did some workshops with me, and he knew that I had a strong background in a bunch of different things, and that I danced for a long time as well. And so he gave me a lot of freedom to play and to explore the character, honestly. So it was really kind of the best experience I could have hoped for, because he said, apart from being here for the handstands and being there for that handstand and doing the choreography here, you can travel across the stage and you can kind of present whatever you want, type thing. And so through a dialogue with him, we ended up getting to the character that I landed at, which is just which is an incredible process, and I'm very grateful to David Gomez for trusting me with that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so amazing. I love that you had the freedom to explore in that way. Chris, what is it like, and what was it like, obviously, up until the pandemic, performing every single night in the same show with the same characters? I think there's something to obviously freelancing and being all sorts of different characters all the time. And then I also think there's really something to dialing into the same character or two night after night, especially in an environment where it's huge audiences and in a show that is very traditional in a lot of ways, where, obviously you're not going to completely be changing your character, for example, like per show, because there's some performances that you do in some companies where you have even more freedom. You can literally change like your character from like show to show. But in a show that's like Mystère, it's a little bit more static in that way. So how has that felt performing? Like, what is your schedule like in Mystère, and what does it feel kind of like, going through that? Obviously, maybe sometimes it feels like going through the motions in some ways. Other days you're more inspired. Other days, maybe you're injured. Maybe other days, you're tired. I mean, I've gone through a whole gamut. So, but what is it been like for you?
For the characters that I play in Mystere, it's I feel actually super, super grateful, because, like I mentioned, they do need to be here at this time and do that trick at that time. But a lot of, like, most of the time I spend on stage, there's no clear cut mark that you have to be. So yes, I have been in Mystere for about 6 years. But there are little things that change every night, really. So, like, there's a tumbling rotation that happens oftentimes. I'll switch a little track with a different character sometimes. And then besides that, there's just moving across the stage. And then, of course, like, if you're super tired or if you're super excited or if you have a friend watching, that dynamic's going to change. So yes, there are like static elements of that, but I can usually find something to be excited about and something to play with, honestly. And beyond that too, a lot of the other characters, they have different artists swing through them. So that one moment with the Spermato character, it's like gonna be different because your other friend is there and he's goofier or he's more serious, or it's just so yes, there is some repetition, obviously, but also I honestly usually find something different and something to play with that wasn't like the night before or even the show before. So there's both, but yeah.
How do you find like your level of concentration? Because like I said, you're throwing some big tricks in when you're doing your hand balancing, you are very high up.
Yeah. It's a little bit higher than I would choose myself, perhaps. It's it's funny because on the fifth pole, we call it, because we have the 4 poles on the bottom, the 4 Chinese poles on the bottom. Then we have that 5th pole that goes up on top of them. And it's for the 5th pole, it's, they make it as stable as possible, but there is still quite a bit of play up there. It does wobble a bit. So that actually is the one point of the show, I guess, besides doing a big tumbling pass where I'm like, all right, Zen, breathe, you've done this before, you're going to be fine type thing. But yeah, it's, if I'm nervous a bit before, because it is a solo moment and, people are watching me, but if I'm usually nervous leading up to it, and then once I start doing like press up the handstand and stuff, I have to be concentrated. So that concentration for me comes naturally with being in that precarious position, I suppose.
I bet it does. When I was doing Verikai, the entry, the dynamic aerial entry, for people that don't know that, you're in a kind of cocoon, and then you're what is that called? You kind of you come down. I'll do more of a simple phrase there.
Descend from the heavens.
Thank you. That's a much better way to put it. You descend from the, you know why I was going to say something else, because they have a kind of crude way to say what we're doing. And so I will actually share that. In Verikai, what they would say is that you're actually in a condom and that you are being released from the condom down into your handstand pin.
Okay. Well, that gives a certain feel to it. Nice. Okay.
It's actually supposed to be a cocoon, but
I guess there are some similarities there.
Right? I almost couldn't handle it every single time. Every single time people would say it to me, I just would be like, "What?" But it's really high up, and you're upside down, and you're hanging there. And I don't do a lot of aerial work. I usually just do it like project to project. But in this specific drop, like how you are so high up in Mystère, it was high and you're upside down waiting for your cue. So you're just upside down, hanging, trying not to rock back and forth, waiting for your cue to be released from the condom. And sometimes it would be, like one time, the strap, the loop that I was in wasn't the right loop because, tech-wise, something happened there. And so I was like hanging upside down and I'm like, this loop feels awfully strange. It feels very tight, but it just must be me. I wonder what's going on. So there would be all sorts of things that happen. But just to come back to your point, I would take a lot of double, triple kind of breaths waiting because sometimes my cue would be a lot longer. Sometimes I would be preset a bit like sooner than normal, and hanging down and just looking at the crowd when you're like so many meters high it was something. And then remembering, oh, right, my music's going to start and then I have to like do something. Okay.
Yeah, that happens sometimes, Shenea. It's like, because I guess similarly, I'm up there for maybe a couple minutes before I do the handstands, and it's like, it can be easy to forget. Like, this is kind of comfortable. I'm hanging out up here, and but I actually have to do something really tricky. So maybe let's focus. But yeah, I feel you on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot of good breathing on that, like what you're saying, some good techniques up there to keep myself present and to bring myself back and to come back into my body. So that was good practice. But I wanted to also ask Chris, like, do you have a certain like routine? What's your routine like in preparing every single day for the show? Do you have a recovery kind of routine that you do, especially because, again, it's a very demanding contract. You're performing, 5 days a week in Mystère to be, if I'm correct.
5 days a week, 2 shows a night usually, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a big thing, and you're doing dynamic movements because you're doing high level tumbling, and then you're also doing hand balancing with contortion. So how do you stay how do you keep your body hip, warmed up, and functioning, and
Yeah, I mean, I think that every artist, if you've been doing it for a while, you get into your groove. So I'm sure you have, you have the set of exercises that makes you feel the best, and you kind of explore like, okay, well, I want to warm up enough that I feel nice and ready, but I don't want to warm up so much that I'm tired. And so I've been, I guess, in shows since I was 19. So at this point in time, I'm not 19 now. I've kind of got it dialed in. So I have usually a half an hour warm up before each show, and so I'll do, I'll go on the bike for a bit. I'll do my squats. I'll do my stretching. I'll do my TheraBands for my shoulders, yeah. So at this point in time, I've got, kind of to the exercise and almost minute, what works for my body and what's going to make the most sense for it. So yeah, I have my half an hour before the show, and then I do a few passages, a bit of like, I guess, super gentle tumbling sometimes, and then I'll have a couple minutes before I go up to climb the fifth pole for the big, or for, I guess, the big moment for Yellow Bird, the handstands. So, in a couple minutes before I enter the stage for that number, I'll, do some more squats, do some more gentle stretching, just make sure I'm not cold, and then, kind of go at it that way. So half an hour warm up, few minute warm up before the act, and then I kind of, I guess, cruise through the rest of the show. I'll have my 5-minute warm up before the tumbling act. I'll do some plyometrics, some gentle stretching, and yeah, I've kind of gotten it down to a routine where I can, for the vast majority of times, feel quite good with my body doing the show. So,
that's so brilliant. What is the working environment like in Mystère? What are some of the other acts that are in the show? And just for listeners, what is it like? Of course, it's a very international show, very international cast.
Totally.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What the experience is like with relationships and relating with the other castmates?
Definitely. I've got no problems with anybody at Mystere. I feel like it's an easy cast to be in. Although there are, Mystere, because of the, I guess, technical aspect of the show more than some shows, you kind of have some acts segmented into groups. So we have our trapeze act, and they kind of have their own warm up time because their act's not till the end of the show. We have the banquine act with, the tumblers. We have the bungee act. So it does kind of naturally segment itself into groups. And I suppose these groups can kind of travel together as they warm up and then go on to the stage. But Mystere's a lovely cast. It was interesting for me coming in because I came in when Mystere was celebrating their 20th year or so. And my only other experience in a big show like this was the Reve, which I did the creation for. And I was, 19. We were all super young, and we all had this crazy bonding experience by, spending 10 hours a day in the freezing pool and stuff like that. So it was a different vibe. But everyone at Mystere is lovely, and they're welcoming to me, and they're kind to me. I suppose the one thing is that in coming into an already established cast, they have a lot of families. So I suppose your potential, the amount of people for you to really like bond with that had time for you, I suppose, were less than in some shows. But I've had a lovely experience at Mystere, and there is still that, that group of people to hang out with and spend time with and become family with. And yeah, it's been a lovely atmosphere for me. Relaxed. Everyone does their job. It's nice.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that. That sounds so fun.
Yeah, it's good. I know I've heard in some shows there can be, quite strong viewpoints and differing opinions on things. But I feel like at Mystere, it's been, for the most part, pretty smooth sailing, and I haven't really had any problems with anybody. So yeah, I've had a good experience.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fabulous. Have you heard anything in terms of when the show is going to be coming back? I was just reading yesterday that they've started to maybe open up some venues within the next couple of months. I don't feel that anything will probably be opening up before the end of this year. But also, Chris, like what happened when you guys ended up going dark? Was it a conversation that they had with you? How was that handled? And what were you told? And yeah, when do you think that you'll be getting back into your characters?
Got you. Yeah, it's yeah, I guess our governor here recently approved groups of 250, and then after that we got an email from Cirque actually soon after, and it said, it 250 essentially for the running cost of Cirque isn't really going to do it. We're not going to be able to break even on that. So we're kind of still in a holding pattern. I mean, this situation is so new for everyone, to be honest. So the company is keeping us updated as much as they can, but there's just, there are so many things up in the air. I agree with you. I don't think that anything's going to be up before the end of the year. I mean, perhaps a smaller venue, but I mean, personally, I think, end of the year at the earliest. But yeah, when COVID, or I guess when all the quarantine started taking place, when our show shut down, it was kind of a crazy experience. I mean, it's all of our artistic team did the best they could with the information they had, but essentially, like, no matter who you are, like, nobody knows. So it's like, hey, we're closing down. We don't have any information for you because we don't know anything either. So it was interesting. I mean, it's the United States' choice to I suppose shut things down later on in the game than we could have. So to be diplomatic about it, we all knew at that point that COVID was something, but because our government wasn't addressing it yet, it was all kind of crazy. So when we were sat down and we were told, hey, by our artistic team, hey, this is going to be our last show for the foreseeable future, at least the near future, it was jarring for everyone. I mean, there were so many questions. Clearly, we were all going to be out of a job, including the artistic staff. So it was a stressful time, as I'm sure it was for so many people. But one thing that the resident shows, and Cirque has done for the resident shows at least, is we do have they guaranteed us health insurance through the end of the year and stuff like that, which is very kind of them. So it was a jarring experience, but we did get that one last show before we shut down for a bit, and then we pretty much just huddled up and asked each other what we needed. So we're helping each other out as far as certain people are helping each other out with like housing situations and kind of just checking up on each other, and here we are, and we're going through it together.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I love that you have one another and that you're supporting one another. So you knew your last show, like you guys knew, like this is going to be our last show, and then you went dark.
Yeah, exactly. So we had an express tapis rouge beforehand in the house, and they said this is going to be our last show for a while. So COVID's terrible, obviously, but it does add a certain element of excitement, good and bad, being like, hey, this is our last show together for a while, guys. So it was almost kind of a crazy kind of fun feel to the shows, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was thinking you probably just like threw all of, all of your passion like onto the stage.
Yeah.
For
like,
that last
performance. What's going to happen? Let's go do a show together. I don't know, because also it's the show schedule. It's we can do it. It's maintainable, but it's like it's a lot. We have 2 1-week breaks and 1 2-week break throughout the year for resident shows. And so all of a sudden the reality of going dark for more than 2 weeks for a long time, it's kind of exciting in a weird way. I mean, obviously horrible, the circumstances, but yep, we were definitely buzzing that show, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, well, to speak to that as well, I was just watching an interview with Misty Copeland, who I just adore and love. She is just everything to me. And she was speaking about, and she, I think, just revealed for the first time, right before the pandemic hit, she had a really bad back injury. And so she had just canceled out of a performance in Washington, D.C. I can't remember which ballet she was performing. But, in speaking about that, she was, pretty much saying like, and this was kind of a blessing in disguise for her because she was already pushing herself to try to do her shows and her performances. And she was, she was suffering. And then the pandemic hit, and this has been a space for her to be able to recover. And I was just imagining listening to her, maybe she wouldn't have recovered in the same way had she still been going at, the level that she's on too, being, New York City Ballet's principal dancer. So I think there was just so many things wrapped up in that. And I definitely spoken to other artists that have said, this is the first rest and break that I have had in a very long time. And it was something that a lot of performers, a lot of people needed. I keep telling people, my family told me, your eyes look different because, when you're traveling and you're constantly touring and doing all these different things, it takes a different kind of energy from you too. It just wears on you going into different time zones and, being in different places where you're unfamiliar and constantly having to check your bearings, being around people that you don't know. And so, they joke with me about that too, of like, your eyes you've never looked so awoke. You never look so rested. What is the phrase that women say? I don't, you never look so rested. So, I can imagine too.
Good. Wow. I don't know how you could look like this. This is crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, that is the silver lining. I mean, once again, I would never wish the situation, on anyone over the world. But it's true on the other side of that. It's like, there are many people, I mean, myself included, that have been kind of at the grind for a long time. And it's nice for the body. It's honestly nice for my mind, at least, to do some reflection and also, consider being an acrobat is not a profession you can have for your entire life. So it's been really great in a way. And like you said, reconnecting with friends. And I haven't talked to you in so long, and it's so great to talk to you. And there definitely is a silver lining to this mandatory vacation, I suppose, or not, mandatory time off, rather. I'll say.
And I'm super grateful that you got health insurance as well, that they made sure that they were committed to keeping that for you because, a lot of people that lost their jobs, lost their health insurance. So
yeah, it's true. It's one, and I know, clearly Cirque is dealing with some financial things, but that was a very nice thing that they were able to offer to the resident shows. So very grateful for that, definitely.
Yes. I mean, anything, everything. And that's precious. Something. I mean, that's not a small thing. That's a really.
Yeah. I mean, health insurance in the United States, it's like not having universal health coverage, which we could talk about another time. Yes, it is a big deal, and it's good health insurance. So very, very thankful for that.
Yes. Yes. Chris, how have you been keeping busy without performing in Mystere night after night? Have you been performing virtually at all? Are you thinking about performing virtually at all? Are you coaching online? I know you said you've been, dialing in, being able to have self-reflection. Obviously, you've been able to spend more time with your husband.
Yeah, I've been having a really fun time. I've been keeping busy. I've taken a break from performing for a bit. I'm resting my shoulder right now. I'm kind of resting a few different body parts that were, slowly wearing and tearing a bit. But I've been biking a lot. I've been hiking a lot, enjoying my dogs, enjoying my family. I went home to see my sister. I guess I go home every few weeks and help her watch her two girls, my nieces, which whom I love and I'm pretty involved in their life. So I've been able to help out with that, and her as well, like so many people going through, unique work situations and not being able to work. And then all of a sudden having to work and having the kids still at home, like her 5-year-old is having to do her work online. Right. So, been able to help with that. I've been rocking out my ukulele and singing my songs and I've got a bunch of different projects and I'm just enjoying it for what it is.
I love it. Oh, and it's so sweet that you're with your nieces and being able to spend more time with them.
They're lovely, and it's great too because, like I said before, it's I'd go there before for a weekend, and now I can go there for a couple of weeks, and really get some quality time in with them. So, yeah, I've been pretty good. I've been trying to steer clear of the TV for the most part, but I did watch this movie called Call Me by Your Name because my friend told me I had to, and it just broke me. But besides that, not too much TV time. But yeah, I've been having a good time finding the silver lining.
Beautiful. Well, in case you want to, and for listeners out there seeking a virtual performance opportunity, Empire Entertainment is looking for acts that have been crafted for virtual performances. So if you have an act that has been adapted for the online experience, send your promos to casting@theempireentertainment.com, and they are taking applications through February 2021. So, Chris, if you happen to, after you've rested your shoulder and rested all the other parts that need their time, and you want to get back into the game virtually, then Empire Entertainment might be the company for you.
Empire Entertainment sounds good. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Yes. I actually have been dialing in and out of that too. So it's been really great to see, companies pivoting and figuring out ways to give access to the performance space. If that's what somebody wants to do, an artist wants to do. Obviously, I think it's really important to show too during this time that not everybody is, performing. Not everybody needs to perform. Not everybody can perform, even if it's virtually. Not everybody's looking for the same things. Everybody is using this time for what is most important to them, and that it shows up in a lot of different ways. So, for everyone, it's not about making sure that they're on the stage every 2 seconds. It's not about even, coaching virtually. There's a lot of different paths that everybody's taking right now, which I think are so important to hear about and to honor all the different ways that we are imbibing this time, because we're all human and we all have these, different layers to our lives that are important. Like you said, being with your family and playing your ukulele. And I think sometimes too, even doing stuff outside of what you normally do is really healthy and inspires you in different ways, so that when you do come back and you decide to, perform again in that same way or slightly different, however that happens for you, you feel the desire. I know there's people that maybe didn't have the desire to be on stage for a while, and they're starting to actually feel it now. After 6 or 7 months, they're like, something? Okay, I actually do want to maybe go back on stage.
Yeah, space from anything, even, space, if I have a couple of days off from my dogs, my friends are watching them. It's that space, and then having that being reunited makes it gives you a new perspective, and it makes it sweeter, I think. So it's similarly, I'm more excited now than I was before to eventually start performing again.
Oh, that's so lovely. Well, to circle back around to your performances and to your residencies in Vegas, as you mentioned a couple of times, Chris, Mystere is not your first residency, your first resident show in Las Vegas with Cirque du Soleil, even though Reve was not Cirque, but it was an offshoot of it's Franco Dragone's company. He created many of the incredible Cirque shows that we see today, and he created his company Dragone. So sometimes I still even just call it Cirque, even though it's Dragone. But it is a Cirque-like show, and it was, when it was created in its original creation, was my favorite show.
It was so unique when in the first couple of years, definitely.
It was. Yeah.
It was, I mean, I've talked to all my friends and directors and stuff. And I think that because while Franco Dragone, did the creation for Mystère, for, like you said, a bunch of the original Cirque shows, you always have a dialogue, of course, between the different companies, the different parties. And so the Reve, I think in the beginning, at least, was the first time that Franco was like, you know what, this is my baby, and so let's do whatever I want.
Yes.
It was, I mean, we ended up, in the beginning, even before the world premiere, there were some really complicated acts, and it touched upon, you know, different elements of different aspects of humanity, and some of them didn't make the world premiere because it really was more of like I suppose the European market would have embraced it more than the American market, but there was some serious stuff in the beginning, and yeah, there were some really. He dug in there a bit, and he wasn't scared. So the first couple of years, it was a super unique show, or just, I suppose, different show than what it is now. Or I guess what it was until recently. I forgot that Reve closed for a second.
It's closed permanently.
Yeah. Oh, that was devastating.
Yeah.
I left in 2010, and I thought that I had, you know, relinquished any ownership over it, or really I thought that it wouldn't be a big deal. But then when my friend told me it closed, I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then like 2 minutes later, I was just like bawling. It was just a big deal, and, you know, in a lot of our lives, and it changed a lot of our lives, and a lot of my good friends, like a lot of my lifetime friends, I have because of that show. But yeah, I suppose it had its time, Reve.
Yeah, it did. And you, again, coming back to how important the Reve was for you in your life and in your career, you suffered a quite traumatizing experience while in the Reve, where you suffered a terrible accident, Chris. Can you share a little bit about that and how it affected your career and your life overall, and obviously the memories that you have when you think about the show and your time there?
I just want to start by saying that I believe that everyone does the best they can, the best with what they have. This particular day, morning, we were at Reve, and it was a bit frantic. We had a new director, and people were scrambling to assemble these bungees from raw materials to present a new image for the new director. And long story short, the checks and balances that morning and the testing just wasn't there. So 2 out of 4 of the bungees snapped, and my buddy and I fell like 40 feet to the stage. I broke a bunch of things, my pelvis, my hips, my back among them, and it was pretty gnarly, pretty uncomfortable. I was in a wheelchair for a while. I had some nerve things that weren't pleasant, but I would say out of the whole thing, the most difficult part for me was accepting that it had happened, accepting my reality now. So it's, you know, I feel like as people, as artists, we try to push, we try to stretch, we want to see what we can accomplish, and I had done that for a long time, and I had finally found my limits, and I was ready to work within my, you know, my body's limits, flexibility wise and otherwise. And then this accident happened, something out of my control happened that completely altered that. Like my body, my facility now is very different from before. So that was really difficult for me. It's you know, it's our livelihood, and my reality was very different all of a sudden. But I soon, well, maybe not super soon, but as soon as I could, I came to realize that, you know, like, would I have preferred the accident to not happen? Of course. Would I have preferred to have my more flexible, my more comfortable body from before the accident? Sure, absolutely. But no amount of that was going to change anything. It's like, really, it doesn't matter. Like, well, here we are, what are we going to do? So I was like, you know what? I can't sell myself as a contortionist anymore, so I need to diversify myself and get some different skills to make myself unique and marketable. And so I hopped into my friend Johanna Sapaki's dance class. And if you don't know Johanna Sapaki, she is a force to be reckoned with. She is in the community, and she's amazing and a hero of mine, so check her out. But I was in her dance class, and I'd never taken a dance class like this before. I just, you know, it was a lyrical jazz. It was a beautiful song. I started bawling in the middle of it. And I was like, this feels really good to move like this. I really like this. Maybe I'm a dancer. So I got Johanna to write me a little mini scholarship program. She sent me to her old studio in LA to take some classes that she used to take. And so for about a year or two there, I took as many dance classes as my schedule would permit, which in turn made it kind of an organic transition for when learning the Red Bird character popped up, because he is quite dance heavy at times. So, you know what, maybe if not for the accident, I wouldn't have jumped so hard into dance and discovered that I love it, and maybe things wouldn't have happened quite the way they did. Yeah, I feel like it's kind of all of our struggle as human beings to do what we can and live in the present. So that's what I really try to embrace. And I suppose that's what I have to say about that. Oh, and it's all our responsibility as aerialists to know enough that we can check our own equipment and ask proper questions. And, if we're going to ask it to hold our lives, we need to respect that, and we need to know a lot and not be scared to speak out if we see something that seems out of the ordinary. So there you go.
My gosh, what you survived and went through and come through on the other side, and you are really magic, Chris, to come through that and being the person that you are, and with your outlook and, the way that you see things, and you're such a light and you're so bright. And I don't think that anybody would ever even imagine that you suffered such a traumatic accident and event, and in your recovery continuing to be able to perform. And I can only imagine psychologically what that put you through. And it must have been, like you said, incredibly sobering experience as well. But I just think that it's phenomenal that you came back and that you continue to be able to perform at such a high level. And even though I know you say that, yes, you did lose certain range of motion, you're just such a beautiful mover, beautiful dancer. You're so poetic, the way that you move and the way that you flow. And no one would ever be able to know. So I just think that speaks to the human being that you are. It's just really fascinating. And and so thank you so much for sharing that. I know that was such a big, that was a big part of your life. And I can imagine also too, maybe, going back and reliving that, not something that you constantly want to bring up because it's not something that defined you, but I think definitely it was probably a pivotal moment in you and in your life, and led you to different things as well in terms of exploration, like what you said. So I feel like that's a beautiful gift that came out of that. And with Joanna, she's so beautiful, and and it shows.
Great. Yeah, she's the real deal. Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's yeah, and I feel like everyone has trauma, everyone has their things, and I feel like either either you move through it and you kind of choose to get past it as much as you can, and you choose to be optimistic, or you kind of get stuck. So it's I've had a lot of support. I got super lucky, but yeah, thank you for saying that. I feel good. I feel good about my body right now. So.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, to pivot on to something a little bit more light, we are both Bay Area acrobats, which I love. And you've had the pleasure of working with Teatro Zinzani.
I did.
Yes, which was for many years a San Francisco-based dinner variety. Zinzani was also the blueprint for the palazzos that exist today in Europe.
Uh-huh.
And the founder, Norm, actually assisted in creating my first circus duo act when I was on the 2004 USA Gymnastics Olympic Tour. So that was
right.
Yeah. Norm did our first
did your first
performance.
Wow.
Yeah. He was a part of that creation. So
I didn't know we had that little connection right there. That's fun.
Yeah. It was when I was 18. That's when we had just retired, and Norm was part of the creative direction on the Olympic tour. So that's when I first met him and discovered Zinzani.
Oh, awesome! Well, that's cool.
Yeah, Zinzani has so much personality and charm, and I love Zinzani. So I wanted to ask, what was performing in Zinzani like for you, Chris?
Oh, it was so lovely. Norm is just lovely. Rini over there is amazing. They it's what even had so when I so I was in the Reve, right? I had that big thing, and so I actually before the accident I had been planning on trying to leave and go adventure and explore other things, and I had actually applied to Cirque and stuff like that, just because I was young and ambitious and aggressive and wanted to explore and stuff, which is good. But I ended up being in the Reve a few more years than I wanted, but I finally left when I was 23, and that's a scary thing to do. So I'd been there, for 5.5 years, and
Oh.
pretty pivotal time in my life. And all of a sudden, my body was different than before, so I couldn't sell myself how I sold myself before. And so it was super scary. But as part of the whole process, I of course reached out to my friends, and one of them recommended Zinzani, and I didn't know Zinzani even existed until one of my friends mentioned it. So I went and saw their show, and I just loved it. I feel like what they are able to create is super high level, but also there's a certain like grittiness to it, like a certain like kind of like vaudeville, not dingy's not the right word because that's got a bad connotation, but a rawness to it that is just so romantic. And so I've been knocking on their door for a while, and so I kept on pushing them with different material, and it's a very small cast. They're like what, on average maybe 11 or 12 people, sometimes less, but only a few of those are acrobats. So some are singers, some are clowns or variety acts. So you really only have a few slots for like somebody like me, who is coming at them with, an aerial act and a hand balancing act. But yeah, I think it took me all said and done maybe 1.5 years. And what finally got things moving for me was I did this thing called the Mystere Festival in Seattle, which is a local. They provide very minimal compensation, but it's mostly just to get out there and to help explore, help share things. And Tim Weiler ended up being there, and and it's right in their backyard. So that's how I first got in there. But working for Zinzani was just awesome. And, Norm often creates new shows. I don't know how many shows they have. I know they have a few that they, go back and do time and time again, because they do their shows in like 4 or 5 month increments. But I was able to create a couple different shows with him. And it's just such a dialogue with him. You really do get to say things and to express your ideas. And so for that reason, it was just incredible. And I got to sing in most of his shows, which I love doing. It's, my entire life was kind of split between musical theater and acrobatics. And it was just a really magical, unique experience.
Oh, I would love to hear you sing in your show.
I mean, you don't have to ask me that hard. I love singing, but it was just great. And it's a different format than other shows because it's 3 hours long and you have, breaks for meals, but it's so intimate to the point where, on one hand, if you have a big, rowdy group, it can be quite disheartening at times if you're trying to present something more serious, But on the other side of that, if you have somebody that like is really paying attention and you see their face and they're like 2 feet away from you and they're really enjoying and they're listening to what you're having to say, it's really beautiful. And then, there's stepping in the blue cheese dressing sick on the floor, which happened one time to me. Because it's anything can happen. You're in a tiny space and you got people having a good time. So it was just a great experience.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's totally that way. And yeah, it's such a fun environment. I just always tell like any artist, if you have the opportunity, take it. To do a show like Zinzani's, like I said, there's a lot of offshoots of the concept of Zinzani, like the Palazzo and the dinner variety experience. And it's such a different feel when you have such a small cast and you have different characters and you're playing these roles and you have so much interaction with the audience. I've had like just the funnest experiences doing the craziest things with audiences and being able to like get away with them, because in that environment, it feels like you can get away with almost anything.
It's just so fun. And it's like, it's more intimate, but there's also like a, to me, tent shows in general are just magic. Cause it's like out of nothing, we'll put up a few walls and let's make magic together. And it blows my mind. I love it. Even like bigger tent shows, I just, I'll cry in most of them because it's just so awesome. But then you get a show like Zinzani or in like a little Spiegel tent like that, and it's just it it's just so unique because it's like, it almost feels like I'm back in high school drama or something. And you're like, these are all your friends around and you're just improvising with them because, and like, you know, the lights can't be as fancy as like a big stage production. So it really, to me, feels like here are just a few little people and we're just going to play together and let's see what happens. I love it. I love it.
I love it too. I so love it. And I can't wait for, you know, all of those shows in that way to be able to come back because there's something so unique about the dinner theater show experience for me in terms of just how long even the show is. And like you said, too, the improvisation of it. I've just come to so many different places as an artist that I never thought were capable while doing dinner theater too. And I've had moments where I have sang mostly in group numbers, but, you know, I've kind of tried to step out on my own a few times, but maybe in the future. Maybe in the future. Yeah. I love all those attributes. And I think that too, it's like what you said, it's kind of like High School Musical. It's almost kind of like doing an episode of Glee.
I know it's just so small. It's so special. It really is.
Yeah, and being able to work with those minds, somebody like Norm, who, you know, is a part of a time. I think that, you know, you're fortunate to work with someone who's been around that long and who was a part of creating a lot of these environments. You know, he was a part of those movements, and, you know, he's also too really tried to bring the dinner theater market more to America, because I've always felt that is something more that we're lacking, and they've done it in different parts and in different ways, and they've also kept Zinzani small, which I felt was really brilliant too, because they're able to maintain like the culture and the quality and all those different textures that go into a smaller like show production as well. So that's also been something that I think is really beautiful to see in terms of, you know, quality over, you know, a lot of expansion, being able to control things. Norm actually being there and being in on all of the creative process. I think that's also too very special. And just let you all know, Norm is quite a presence. He's got this beard. He's got this beautiful, like, white hair. He's got this very deep crimson voice that's, you know, sounds like he's been, I don't know, drinking whiskey or doing something with that voice. I mean, it's kind of otherworldly. It's very movie-like, the kind of, you know, he's a character.
He's a character. And I remember, like, it's when I think of Zinzani, I get this, like, funny, like, bittersweet sinking feeling in my chest, just because, like, when I went in there for my audition, like, yeah, you walk in and then you see Norm, and he's just like, he's Norm, you know, which is awesome. And then you're in this like little tent with these pillars and it feels otherworldly to me. He's quite a character. He's such a lovely man.
Between him and Veronin, I mean,
I've actually never worked with Veronin personally. I've been in a cast that had like a week of overlap, but yeah, he's hilarious. He's
another otherworldly character where you literally forget that you are in, like, you're like not in a movie. He literally transports you. He's got such a show in such a way. To me, he's also too, he's been able to, like, I don't know, kind of like organically like reincarnate himself into like all of these like present day experiences.
He's you know what too? Can I please share with you one more thing?
Yes.
So Zinzani, it's like, so I got there and they hired me and I'm super excited, right? But like, this is the first small show I've done. I've done the Reve and I've done the Reve and then I gigged around, but like nothing this, I suppose, intimate or nothing like this. So I get there and like, I meet Sam and Sandra. Do you know Sam and Sandra?
I don't think so.
Sandra Foisy and Sam Payne. So I meet them and they're just these lovely people. And you know, I find out my husband actually knew them from the San Francisco Circus School. And then I see their act, and I was just like, dude, what am I doing here? Like, their act is perfect. And so, come to find out, they won the Cirque du Soleil, I think, with this act that's called Vertical Tango. And for all of you,
oh yes, Vertical Tango. Sorry, yes.
For all you got to look it up if you haven't. But it's just spectacular. So I'm like, wait. How am I working with you guys? Hello? But I met them and they too, I think, they were in Nouvelle X, I think. I don't know if they were in Mystère. but anyway, so just they definitely added to the otherworldliness of it, because then they're like, oh yeah, this is our act and it's won this and it's been around for like this many years, and I'm like, dude, you guys are legends. Like, what am I doing here? But yeah, it is a very special place in Zani with a lot of interesting, beautiful characters and crazy, accomplished people.
Yes, it's always like a really diverse, interesting, beautiful cast. And yes, I do know them. Sometimes I know the act name, but I forget the people's names, which I know we all kind of go in and out of that, where people like, an act comes to your mind and it's like, oh yeah, I know them by their act name. So yes, it's
totally.
Sandra, and yes,
check so good. And it's like, you don't get much nicer than Sam and Sandra. They're just so lovely. But yeah, they're over in the East Coast right now, over in Brattleboro, I think.
Oh, wonderful!
Anyway, yeah.
Oh, well, that's a special story, and thank you for sharing that. You're so funny. You're so brilliant. But I also think that speaks to, which is also a good thing to add, is that different aspects of your act live in different spaces differently. And I think that that's what's so amazing about going into different shows and doing different things, and also crafting your performance for certain environments specifically. There's something really, really, really brilliant about that, because some acts can't live everywhere. Some acts are perfect in some environments, and that's okay. And I have such an appreciation for that. I think sometimes there's artists that have created acts that are so masterful, where it's like, wow, I couldn't imagine that act in any other space. And and I'm saying that in the most honorable way, because to me that is such an art and such a talent. But you're really funny. In seeing yourself in that way.
No, that's a really good point, because like I mean, look at Mystère. It's like the space is huge. It seats like 1,600 people or whatever, and it's like to make handstands exciting, they put them like 40 feet up in the air. So it's like the act that I did at Zenzoni, like it just wouldn't work. It's too far away, I feel like. But but there's some to come back to the special space type thing of like a smaller venue like Zenzani. It's like Sam and Sandra's act. It's like it filled up the space. Like for me, it's like they raised the little turntable 4 feet, and it's like it works, And it's a very good point what you said about how certain acts are kind of just made to just thrive in certain environments.
Yeah, and I'll never forget when I first went to Zenzani, and Bianca Serpetto, who has been the resident aerialist there for many years. She's beautiful, and the first time she did a drop, and literally her tissue like cascaded over us while we were like drinking wine. It was just. It was just everything. I was like
magical.
It was so magical. She had this crimson red tissue, and it just like flooded the table. And she just looked down and was like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Oh wow, that's such a beauty. Like I can just see it, and it's like you're in it. Like there's no like sense of separation.
No,
so
she
great.
was
So
the table. The table was her tissue. The tissue was the tissue.
Yeah. Like I am part of your act right now. You're doing great, girl. That's awesome.
Amazing.
I love it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on to the show. You are just a phenomenal human being. You're a phenomenal artist. There's so much to learn from you, so much to be inspired by you. I am so honored to know you from way back when, and then to see your journey into all the beautiful spheres that you've worked in now, that you've performed in now. And you're just such a light. You have such a beautiful perspective on life. And thank you so much for taking the time. And I look forward to everything that happens for you moving forward. I can't wait for you to be back on the stage when that time is right. And I hope that you continue to enjoy your time with your ukulele and
I will.
and different facets, and exploring yourself as an artist, as a person. You're just lovely. I had so much fun talking with you, and I know that everybody listening to this is just going to have like a wonderful and laugh out loud time listening to you describe different things. You're
Thanks,
just fabulous.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. Thanks for having me. And once again, like there's like I might not be here if not for you, to be honest. Like I used to go home from tumbling and I used to fast forward when, we still had to meet at the same spot. I'd fast forward to the acro parts and like, you're kind of why I wanted to learn a one-arm handstand, which kind of got stuff started for me. So thank you for that. And it's always, I think it's always a beautiful thing to remind ourselves that we're all like connected in one way or another, but yeah, anyway, long story short, you're amazing too. And thank you for having me. And this girl made some big waves when she was doing triple off of one person. I mean, it's just incredible. And like before YouTube, but it was like, wait, stop it right now. She did 3 anyway. So I thank you for your contribution and thanks for having me. And it's been lovely catching up with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you say. Thank you. I feel very honored, and thank you so much. That means so much to me, Chris, in so many ways. Thank you.
I wanted to end this episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast by sharing an inspiring story that mimics in some ways that of my guest Chris Phi's. Former Canadian gymnast Taylor Lindsay Noel, at 14, was once on track to becoming an Olympian when she tragically took a spill that left her paralyzed and quadriplegic. In the 12-year journey since she became a quadriplegic, she's discovered she also has a strong sense of resilience and used that energy to develop her own high-end tea brand, affectionately branded A Cup of Tea, which was recently named as one of Oprah's favorite things. In her own words about her success, Taylor proclaims, "My story demonstrates the power of community and what can happen when people are supported by the love of friends, family, and strangers." There's life after tragedy, she says. "I'm hoping to break other glass ceilings. I'm a female, Black, disabled, small business owner, and I'm still here. No is not a real word in the capacity of your life." Taylor is nothing short of a miracle in all ways, and may her passion for beginning again and never giving up on the redirection of your dreams guide you. And don't forget to purchase a cup of tea. The Live Like an Acrobat podcast is also available on Circus Talk, the inclusive, independent, and international online network for the circus industry. Circus Talk's mission is to create a level playing field for this industry and democratize access to information. Please consider subscribing to the Live Like an Acrobat podcast and to the Circuspreneurblog.com, where you will find extended conversations and interactive content of each episode of the Live Like an Acrobat podcast. I'm your host, Shenea Stiletto, and until next time, please stay safe and stay healthy.